The return of Yahweh Shai, the sky began to bleed. It wasn't the gentle hues of a sunset, but something darker, something wrong. The blood-red sky hung heavy over the world, casting an eerie glow over cities and forests alike. The air itself seemed to tremble with an invisible force, like something immense and unspeakable was drawing closer. People whispered in fear, sensing that something ancient had been awakened. Across the globe, the name spread like wildfire, Yahweh Shai, spoken by those who claimed to see visions, those who felt the pull of something far greater than themselves. It wasn't a name they'd known before, yet it slipped into their thoughts like a forgotten memory. Preachers stood on street corners, their eyes wide with manic certainty, shouting warnings to anyone who would listen. Then one night, the world changed forever. A crack of thunder split the sky, but there were no clouds. The heavens tore open with a deep, shuddering groan, as though the universe itself was being ripped apart. From the breach, a figure descended, cloaked in a robe so white that it seemed to absorb all light, its edges flickering like the tongues of a great fire. His feet touched the ground, and with that single movement, the earth shuddered violently. Buildings collapsed, roads split, and the world itself seemed to bow under the weight of his arrival. The figure was Yahweh Shai. He was taller than any man, a towering presence that seemed to warp the very air around him. His face was hidden beneath the shadow of his hood, but his eyes, glowing like two dark suns, pierced the hearts of all who gazed upon him. They were not the eyes of a savior, they were the eyes of a judge, a destroyer. His voice came not as sound, but as a presence inside every mind, filling the thoughts of all humanity at once. The time has come, judgment is here. Panic erupted immediately. People screamed, scattering in every direction, though there was nowhere to hide. The chosen people, the elect of the children of Israel, the so-called Black, Hispanic Native Americans, were already removed from Earth by way of the chariots weeks before. Cities burned as the earth ruptured. Skyscrapers toppled into the flames, and the sky, still bleeding red, began to rain fire. People cried out to their gods, pleading for mercy, but there was none to be found. Yahweh Shai moved by the chaos, his white robes trailing behind him like the winepress. Everywhere he walked, the world fractured, crumbling to dust beneath his feet. Those who had proclaimed themselves followers of faith fell before him, tears streaming down their faces, clutching crucifixes and holy books. "Lord, have mercy," they cried, their voices hoarse with desperation. "We believed in you." But Yahweh Shai's voice echoed back in their minds, cold and unforgiving. "You believed in your image of me, but you never knew me." With a single gesture, the ground beneath them gave way, and they were swallowed into the abyss, their screams lingering in the air long after they had vanished. There was no salvation. There were no second chances. Angels descended from the sky, but they were not the angels of peace and light. These beings were terrible to behold, great winged creatures, their feathers singed and blackened, their eyes burning with a fierce, unforgiving flame. They carried swords that blazed with a hellish fire, and wherever they swung, the world cracked and bled. They moved with precision, slicing through the guilty, their wings spreading destruction in every direction. One by one, the nations of the earth fell, the seas rose, their waters black and churning, swallowing entire coastlines. The mountains crumbled, reduced to dust in an instant. Volcanoes erupted, spewing rivers of molten rock that devoured everything in their path. And through it all, Yahweh Shai stood at the center of the apocalypse, his dark gaze fixed on the crumbling world beneath him. A small group of survivors, huddled in the ruins of a once great city, dared to approach him. They had heard the prophecies, seen the signs, and they hoped, desperately, that they might be spared. One of them, a woman with trembling hands, stepped forward, clutching a Bible to her chest. Her voice was a mere whisper, but it echoed through the empty streets. "Yahweh Shai, we have repented, we have prayed, please show us mercy." For a moment, Yahweh Shai was silent. His gaze settled on the woman, and for the briefest instant, there seemed to be a flicker of something in his dark, burning eyes, something almost like sorrow. But then, his voice returned, filling the air with its cold, dreadful finality. "You did not seek truth, you sought comfort, and now there is only judgment." The woman fell to her knees, sobbing, but it was too late. With a slow, deliberate motion, Yahweh Shai raised his hand, and the ground beneath the survivors erupted in flame. They were consumed in an instant, their cries swallowed by the fire. The world continued to collapse. As the earth split open and the seas boiled, the sky, now fully blackened, swirled with thunder and lightning. The angels, their swords dripping with the blood of the judged, gathered around Yahweh, awaiting his final command. Their wings were tattered, their faces emotionless, their task nearing completion. Yahweh looked upon what remained of the world, burning, crumbling, reduced to ash. The time of man had ended, the sins of the earth had been weighed and found wanting. All that was left was to end it. He raised both arms, his dark blood-filled robe billowing in the hot, sulphurous winds. The earth let out one final shuddering cry as the last pieces of it broke apart, tumbling into the abyss below. Cities, forests, oceans, all swallowed by the void. And then, with a final blinding flash of light, the world also known as Babylon the Great was gone. Yahweh stood in the infinite darkness, the angels at his side. The universe was silent now, devoid of life, devoid of hope. Judgment had been delivered. The slate had been wiped clean. Without a word, Yahweh turned and ascended into the blackness of the void, disappearing into the wound in the sky, which sealed behind him, leaving nothing but an eternal fire that was mentioned by the prophet Isaiah. The end had come, and there would be no beginning again for Esau. The true Israelites will now rule with him forever. The end.